Greetings, everyone. This is Mike Riley, the voice of Iron Man. And this is the Old School Tri Show with my Kiwi mates Cameron Harper and Brian Ashby. The show that talks about all things triathlon, old and new. We're powered by Ansco Foods, bringing you nutrition and good health from New Zealand's beef and lamb. Thanks for listening, everyone. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Old School Tri Show, brought to you by our good friends at Ansco Foods. And today, Brian Ashby, the word legend is bandied around a heck of a lot these days, but this time it really does fit, doesn't it?
Anyone who starts an Ironman's a legend, but then there's the mega legend, the ultimate legend, and sometimes in any sport, there's the odd name that kind of just goes out to the bigger public. Those from outside of the sport, they associate that person's name with the sport, with the event. Well, that totally underlines the guest that we've got coming up next, the one, the only, 12 times winner of Ironman New Zealand, Cameron Brown.
Ansco Foods is proud to be the new naming partner of Ironman New Zealand, ensuring every stroke, pedal and stride is powered by the best nature has to offer. Ansco Foods is on a mission to bring nutrition and good health from New Zealand's finest beef and lamb. Ansco Foods, putting the iron in Ironman with New Zealand's finest beef and lamb. Visit anscofoods.com/Ironman to find out more.
So yeah, like the Rolling Stones and Paul McCartney, they've been around since forever and they're still rolling out new music. And I suppose the Ironman New Zealand version of the Stones would be the bloke joining us now, Cameron Brown. You've been around forever. You're still going really strong. Great to have you on board, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. No, it's good to be on the show.
One of the nice things, I guess, about your career, we're nerds. The three of us here are nerds. We love Ironman. We love Ironman New Zealand. But it is a bit of a niche. Wish it wasn't. I wish everybody loved it as much as we do. But one of the cool things about being a part of that niche, every now and then you get someone who kind of just jumps out beyond and the broader public pick up on it. Aaron Baker, a generation or two ago. And I guess you've been the flag bearer for the sport. What's it like being an ambassador for Ironman New Zealand unofficially?
It's when I first started the sport, in I think 1987, and as soon as I started, I was down at St Heliers watching the Ironman unfold when it was based in St Heliers, Auckland, and just follow the race in my dad's ute, and we'd go around and be on that waterfront cheering everyone on, and we used to have Japanese billets at our house and house them the week before and take them around, and it was just, I've grown up since I was 14, and still love the sport now. So it's been 37 years of engagement and love for this unique sport.
So what made you think of an Ironman? What did you think to yourself? Where did you first see it? Was it like an ad in the paper? Was it that some people at school were into it? Were your folks into it? What made you think about an Ironman?
No, it was probably because Pakuranga College. That's where I went to college, and first started there, and I think a whole lot of us went down to the race and watched it the whole day, and I was just fascinated that first day that I ever saw it. And thought, should I want to do this one day? And one day when I was old enough, and a few of my mates, when they did it when they were 18 years of age, it took me till I think I was 25 to do my first one. But just if I was in Auckland, I'd be watching that race. So there was a couple of times I missed it. I think I was over in Australia racing, but otherwise, every year, it was just a massive day of watching the greats. Scott Molina, Dirk Ashman, Scott Tinley, Dave Scott came down, Mike Pigg came down, Aaron Baker. It was a massive race back in the day, because back in the day there was 5 Ironman events around the world. There was Lanzarote, there was New Zealand, there was Ironman Japan, Ironman Australia, and Ironman Canada. Ironman Germany. So, and then those were the only outside events outside of Hawaii. So, if you did an Ironman, you were and you were super well known, and you were just an incredible athlete. So nowadays, I couldn't count how many races there are around the world. There's just too many, and there's all those races. I think back in the day, they were all tough races. Auckland was, a very, very hard race. It was, it was that swim out at St Heliers was always pretty rough. You got the odd beautiful, calm conditions, but many times I'd see, Japanese athletes getting pulled out of the water 200 metres into the swim because there's rough as guts out there. And then the bike course was, I did it today. I ride around that course nearly every or twice a week, and it was a super tough course. Hills all the way, rough chip on the road surface, and then the run was challenging as well. You had a bit of undulating hills, and then you had the waterfront, the beautiful waterfront to run along. So it was it was awesome to watch every year.
You were you're sort of like the unofficial curator of an Ironman museum. Collecting stuff over the years. Back then, were you sort of nerding out on the sport and collecting bits and pieces and following the races around the world? Because, this is pre-internet time we're talking here.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I loved it. I always remember watching Molina finish. I think it might have been 1991, and he just crossed the finish line. And, cheeky, 18-year-old, I went up to him and said, "Oh, can I have your uniform?" And he said, "Mate, you don't want that because, I think he'd, had a bad day, and it was pretty smelly, and it was. But it would have been cool to grab that uniform. I would have had it hung up somewhere, but seeing those guys out on that course was, they were the world's best. Molina won in '88 in Hawaii, world champion, and he would later be my coach for quite a few years and mentored me to go from pretty much a bit of a softie and training hard to being probably one of the hardest trainers in the world. And he implemented a very, very hard work ethic in my lifestyle, and probably got me many fantastic results in over that time.
Did he remember you being the young bloke that asked for his kit?
Yeah, he probably would if I asked him again. Do you remember that little freckle-faced kid that came up to you and asked for your uniform 5 minutes after you'd just finished an Ironman?
Yeah, so when before you get to the start line of an Ironman, in 1987, you've seen Auckland, for the first time. What was the first ever race that you did? And just tell us about the years. Let's go through the years, sort of building up to your first Ironman race.
First race was, I think, early. I think it was early 1987. Britannia Restaurants Triathlon, and I'd had a bit of a shocker. Got dehydrated out there. It was only a sprint distance, but just didn't have a clue of hydrating yourself, and ended up not. I couldn't even go to school the next day. I was hallucinating, and didn't know I wanted to wear my pajamas to school, and so I spent the day in bed, and I was
in those days, Cam, you would have been that's probably about fourth form, fifth form, year 10, 11 for that kids these days.
Yep.
And it'd be a typical example, I guess. There was, and I mean this respect, but bugger all gear and no idea is really how it was in those days, wasn't it?
Yeah. You just had, a $500 bike, and back then there was probably 10 speed. That was it. Not 12 speed or 24 speed that you have on bikes nowadays, and alloy bikes. Just a standard road bike, and 30 spoke wheels. There was just very, very basic stuff, and you had a bit of water probably out in the course, and that was it. There was a bit of a replace at the end of the finish for your hydration, but it was very, very basic. So very, very unique. It was a great time in the sport, and the sport was just progressing every year. You'd see the progression of Vero bars the next year, and or 87 really. So aerodynamics were fast coming into the sport, and I would see that over the next few years. As I progressed, and we're saying we're all geeks of the sport, and you love to go fast, and so some of the things, I remember having a seat shifter, which was a little thing that went on the back of your on your seat and gave you 4 or 5 positions. You had a little brake lever at the front of your handlebars, and you push that so you could, on the climbs, you'd push it back so you get more power, and then on the flats you'd push it right forward. And man, yeah, if they had it nowadays, I would use it, because it was a fantastic little thing that served its purpose and was a brilliant apparatus, that's for sure.
In fact, didn't someone have that one of the Grand Tours last year? On just in the back of my mind, and the cycling
They
company.
had a seat dropper. They had a seat dropper, for
Yeah,
descending.
yeah.
Yeah.
What was your strength back then when you first started? Were you a runner or?
No. I come from nothing. I played rugby, badminton, tennis, soccer. Yeah, did every sport. So and then found the sport that just came from nothing. So everyone did cross country at school, but I was shit in all 3 disciplines really when I first started. But quickly progressed, because you tried to discipline yourself, but you still mucked around in those early years. It was just race your mates to at training and school, and it was on the bare minimum. But you definitely, I think you had some talent, because you quickly progressed, that's for sure. And we had the great Rick Wells, world champion, and Aaron Baker, world champion, 1987. That were they were household names in New Zealand. So when you had the world's best on your doorstep, and they would race every single weekend back home as well. So it was fantastic for the sport, and the sport just was growing fast. And you saw Wellesley on Moro Bar ads, Bend On ads, and he was my hero, and it was great to see. So and to rub shoulders at the start line with a guy like that was bloody awesome. So I've still got his signature somewhere up from I think 1987. I've still got his signature. He came to our school. Our teacher Patsy Lambert rang him up and said, right, I think it was just after he won, him and Brett Marshall, another household name, came to our school and spoke to us, and we were just amazed that these 2 guys came. She just rang them up, and they said, "Yep, we'll come." So it was awesome to as 4 formers, to have the world's best at your school was pretty incredible.
So what was it like? So I was just going to say, so obviously after that first race, you said you got horrifically dehydrated and had a bit of a replace at the end of it. So, thank goodness you didn't get disheartened or disillusioned. But what to go to the next race, was it the combination of, you love the sport, you're like, yep, this is me, you're racing your mates, and you sound like you had a very inspiring teacher at Pakuranga College as well.
Yeah, it was a combination of all those things. Patsy Lambert, who was our English teacher at school, and every Friday would go down to Bucklands Beach and pretty much muck around and do some training. But we had it was probably 20 athletes at the school, and God, the sport was very new then. So, but it was growing in at secondary school level as well, and getting bigger and better. So, but there was so many races back then. Back in the day, there was races every single weekend of through summer. So, nowadays, we have 4 races in Auckland, and that's it. Through the whole entire summer. Whereas back in the late 80s and that you were able to race every weekend. So every race you did, you got better. You knew how to pace yourself. Nutrition, you learned what to eat and what to drink, and didn't need to eat much during a sprint race, but that was all you were doing. But there was, and beer companies were sponsoring all these races, so there was quite good prize money. Wellesley could pick up $1,000, every weekend, and $1,000 back in 87, 86, 88, 89 was, probably worth 5, 6, 7,000 nowadays. So it was good money in the sport, and thanks to those beer companies that sponsored it.
So what happened, as you progressed? At what point did you, I guess the ITU was established in, I think, in 89 or something like that. Well, how did you progress and so on, national attention and opportunities? How did they evolve for you?
Yeah, so I just, had quite sort of immediate success at secondary school level, and then won New Zealand junior champs, and I think it might have been 1988, and then but yeah, you're racing guys that were professional on the weekends, and you just learned. That was the great thing, everyone was on the start line together, and there was a lot of good athletes, and you'd have Canadians that came over and did the Kiwi Summer, and or they went to Australia, but the sport was thriving. Every race sort of had 500-600 athletes just at a sprint race, so it was very, very competitive, and I think sort of had immediate success, and you wanted to do better every season, so you would do the Kiwi Summer, and then I think I pretty much turned professional straight after I left school and went to Japan, and so you'd race Kiwi Summer and then the European Summer, and wherever it was, Northern Hemisphere, and so went to Japan for 6-7 years. For each time you go up there for 6 weeks, and that was extremely helpful for me because it was paid the bills and set myself up for future, and went to the World Champs Juniors in 1992 and got second behind the great Spencer Smith, who would go on and win 3 World Championships. So and just progressed through those Olympic distance races, and had I wanted to go to the Olympics, but in the end I just didn't have the run speed that the likes of Hamish Carter, Bevan Doherty, and all those guys had. So in the end, I did my first Ironman in 1997, and it was a bit of a balls up. Wore a new wetsuit for the first time, and back then, wetsuits weren't as supple as what they are now, and they were pretty much pretty stiff, and just didn't have that flexibility that we do now. And it was a brand new wetsuit, put it on, and arched my back the wrong way throughout the whole swimming throw. So 180 k's trying to ride with a stiff back doesn't work. So I had a shocking ride, but ended up still running a 3:06 marathon, and if I hadn't finished that race, then I might not have come back and competed another one for quite some time, but pushed through, and I think it put the definitely I wanted to come back, but 1998 I still had a little bit of inkling to try and go to the Olympics, but when the race changed to Taupo in 1999, I thought, right, I'm going to be on the start line again for that, and had given up all hope of short course, and really wanted to do well in Ironman racing and give it a good shot.
I mean, the money now, like in short course and so on, is pretty good. We have Super League and all these sort of things going on. Gone through much of your career, the money's kind of been a bit rubbish, but what was it like in the early days that you said, you were able to pay your bills in Japan and things like that? Was the money back then pretty good in the sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first World Championships in 1987 when Rick won, I think there was $200,000 in prize money for that day. And then it went to $50,000 total for, years after. So, as I said, the beer companies really got, behind the sport. With DB and Stainlager both having triathlon series in New Zealand, and they sponsored New Zealand Ironman, DB Ironman for many, many years, and my contracts up with Epson Computers got bigger and better every year as long as we progressed, and started off with just me for 1 year, and then in the end there was probably 15 athletes on the team. So. But it was still a hard grind, and there was a lot of racing back then. But now there's a lot of professional athletes, but there's a super amount of so many races now, especially for 2024. You've got the Ironman series, you've got the Professional Triathlon Organisation series, and you've got ITU having their own series as well. So, and Challenge as well. So there's the list is long. So it's a good time to be a professional athlete. That's for sure.
Yeah, it seems to have come full circle in a lot of ways, Cameron, and that that there is money coming back into the sport, which for people as they look ahead, I mean, like Brian was saying, the likes of the PTO, that series they're doing, the likes of the Ironman series, and I think Super League, if you're successful in some of those distances, you can actually do well for yourself now, which is great. It can be a proper career that can take you through.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Hayden Wild, and
Yeah.
he's earning some good cash in the sport. So, and as long as you have good sponsorship, and he's got great sponsorship as well. But there's a lot of athletes out there that they only survive on prize money. So there's just not the amount of sponsorship in the sport to for everyone to go around. So that's why probably most athletes have a second job, and that job would be coaching other athletes. So it's just sadly it's like any sport. There's just not enough sponsorship dollars in the sport. So and that was one thing that helped me throughout my whole career. I had fantastic sponsors, and if you had success, then you got that sponsorship. But if you were that sort of second tier level down, then you had some extremely challenging times, and sort of a lot of great athletes over that time that just had to give up the sport because they just couldn't make ends meet. And it's like anything in life, you got to persevere, and I kept persevering, and managed to do extremely well in Ironman.
You talked about your wetsuit in '97 and your first Ironman. We sent a picture to Scott Molina of him in his first wetsuit in 1985, and the goggles that he had. I think he said he lost about 1 kilo of skin in 1985 in that wetsuit. So 97, you've dipped your toes. You've had a crack at Ironman. Didn't sort of work out quite how you wanted, but you know what's needed now to get the job done to a sufficient standard. Just tell us what came next after that.
Yeah, I think I did my first hour and a half Ironman in '98 and had immediate success there and won it. And that was sort of probably the thing I needed to make myself say, right, okay, I'm going to persevere this long distance. And I think Auckland was just getting bigger and bigger as a city, and it was pushing out to that outskirts of where the course went, and logistically the race just got tougher and tougher to hold in Auckland. I would have loved to have raced many more times in Auckland over that course, because it was such a great course and demanding that. But the shift to Taupo was a good one, and 1999 when it shifted there, a guy called Tim de Boom came down, who go on to win 2 world championships, and we had a great battle, and I think I entered the finishing chute 80 metres behind him, and finished I think 13 seconds behind him in that first time back, and after that it was like, right, okay, I'm going to persevere and go full throttle with this Ironman gig and give it a good shot.
Did you immediately fall in love with the Taupo course? I know it was a terrible day, that first one, it bucketed with rain and so on. Did you sort of think, this is a course that this works for me?
Yeah. I mean, it was a shit of a day. I think most people, like my wife, spent the whole time in the Taupo bar, because it was, I think it rained for 24 hours down there. So it was just, one of those. I think we've had a couple of times down there where it's just the bit of precipitation, and it just rained and rained and rained. So it was flipping horrible. But when we got good days down there, they were pretty awesome. I remember 2000 when Thomas Hauerigger won, and I think it was one of the hottest days in Taupo history, 35 degrees and blue skies, and what a stunning day that was. But it's probably been few and far between those nice days. It's always been a sort of 4 seasons in one day down there. But I think the thing that brought me back was just that Taupo community and the support out there on the course. And every year the race got bigger and bigger, and it was at that stage it was still, there weren't many Ironmans around the world, so the coverage it was on ESPN all over the world. So my sort of name got out there, and it was great for me, and I just couldn't imagine not training through a Kiwi summer without doing Ironman. So, and from that day onwards, every year from 1999, I would train hard for that March race, first Saturday in March.
For you, Cam, when was it that you thought to yourself? I mean, obviously you came through doing a lot of races and you won races in the shorter distances, but when was it you thought, shit, I'm actually pretty bloody good at these. I mean, you're finishing just behind Tim de Boom. I mean, that's the biggest name in the world at that time. Was it that sort of thing? You're looking at it going, shit, I'm actually pretty good at this. Or was it, when was the realization that you're going, yep, this is me?
Yeah, probably after that. But then you get a kick in the butt when you go to Hawaii for the first time in 2000, and I think I ended up in 30th or something because, I just probably didn't train hard enough. I went to the race. I spent a few weeks in Oahu training, and but just didn't realise how hard and how incredibly hot that place was, and just got my ass kicked. And then I think after that I went and saw Melina Scott, and hired him as my coach, and the next year I went back and got second. So and he pretty much, I went from 300 k's of riding a week to my biggest 800 k's a week of riding. So he pretty much doubled my training. Brought in the introduction of sort of strength training as well, and we still, it wasn't just going out and riding hours and hours and running for hours and hours. There was a lot of intensity as well, and you were still, you were running 800s and k's on the track and running hard and fast. So he brought great structure to what I needed, and from then on, my success. 2001, I won my first Ironman, and it was a good steady run after that.
With you mentioned just Hellriegel in 2000 and stuff, and then Melina doubling, particularly your cycling and so on. Was that just a direct reflection of where the sport? Because we had all at that time had all those sort of uber cyclists from Germany that were really dominating through Kona, sort of through that period, or had been.
Yep, and the bike was getting faster and faster all the time, and nothing like we see today, because the technology and the frames, the aerodynamics just wasn't there. So if you rode 430 back in the day, like the great late Steve Larson, I think he rode, it was either a 428 or a 434 on the course in Taupo, and we were like, oh my god, that's just so incredibly fast. Now guys are, I think Andrew Starkowitz rode a 414 one year, and
then Joe Skipperson hold my beer. Joe Skipperson's hold my beer and tunes up with his bike, right? It's incredible, isn't it?
So, and that's on. You imagine if you had a beautiful sealed road, that wasn't a big chip surface, the guys would be going even quicker. So the biking is where it's the times have gone so incredibly quick now. The swimming's still the same. The running, we've seen some big improvements in the last 3 years with the introduction of the carbon shoes, and they're making massive differences, compared to what we were able to run. If in my heyday, you ran 240, 241 just on a piece of sponge, and that was about it. If you had the shoes and the technology there, you'd be running, a 236, 237 as well. So that technology, the guys like, you look at what Alan and Dave Scott did in 1987 at Hawaii when they went 809 on, just simple bikes. The wheel technology back then was just, I think Alan rode a spoke, 28 spoke rim wheel there, 10 mils deep. It's just, if they had the equipment, they'd be going just as fast. So the athletes back in the past were just as great as what they are now, but technology has just come very, very fast and quickly over the last 10 years. We've seen massive improvements, so it's great to see. But I think people have to understand that I think they're short-sighted to say that those athletes, excuse me, what the Melinas, the Dirk Ashmanites, and what they did back in the day are just as good. They're just the great athletes as well. So, it's technology has come a long way, that's for sure.
We talked with Scott Molina a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about having the ability to race all distances, and that's obviously something that was done in those days. You guys are racing everything from, like you said, the sprint race down at Mission Bay to Ironman New Zealand. And it's interesting, the Norwegians seem to have brought that back a lot now, haven't they? And other athletes seem to be doing that more and more, trying to go up and down the distances.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, if you keep your speed, and Ironman has become such a, back in the early 80s, it was just survival really, but now it's a race. It's a full-on race. You are going as hard as you can for, not 8 hours now. It's, 7 hours 30, as we saw in the weekend at Bustleton. Guys are, doing 7:30, 7:40 all the time now. So it's got quicker and quicker and quicker over those years. And but those short distance races, are extremely helpful to athletes. So I think that's one thing that athletes don't do enough now. We don't have the same amount of races in New Zealand, but it is beneficial to race short course, sprint, Olympic, halves, because it all helps the big picture.
So going into 2001, 99, you've finished second behind a bloke who was about to become a world champion. Then the next year in 2000, in that really hot day, which I remember oh so well, you again finished second behind a bloke who had been world champion a few years ago. And I think Hal Regal, I think what he described you as an iron baby or something, but a bloke big things are going to come for. How pumped were you then when sort of 2001 rolls around, knowing that you're there or thereabouts, and it wasn't just those guys that won, but some other hardcore pros that you'd beaten along the way, guys like Bernard and the like. How ready did you feel in 2001 that now's my time?
Yeah, I think I definitely had a great build up and trained well over that Kiwi summer, but every year there was another guy that would come down, and that year was Peter Sandvang, who was IT world champion, and he had won in 1988 in the last year in Auckland, and he came back in 2001, and I think he had a 12-minute lead off the bike, and I remember him saying to the manager of the day then, he will not catch me today, and but I was able to run a 2:45 that day and catch him. I think there's about 1,200 meters to go. And yeah, it was a dream come true. You'd watch the race as a junior and you dreamed about winning it, but probably never really thought that was you were actually capable of it. And but to have that dream come true was probably one of the best moments of my life. In racing in the sport, that's for sure.
Was there a time in that race with 1,200 meters? You caught him at 1,200 meters to go. Was there a time during that marathon where you deviated from race plan and said, I just got to give it death here and it's hell or glory?
Yeah, you were slowly catching them the whole day in that, but when you get off the bike with a 12-minute deficit, it's pretty mind-boggling. But I think when someone falls apart like he was, his form was going in that last part, so I think he probably still had 2 minutes, I think, at 5K, and but I was just looking back at the footage. I got the VHS video cassettes out last week. I still got a VHS recorder, so I was looking at it, and I actually did an Instagram post on it, just on run form, and I was probably running at my fastest at that point when I caught him, and he was just going backwards. So it's never a nice feeling when you're in the lead and someone's catching and you're feeling like crap. So when I passed him, I made sure I passed him quick and fast. But probably another 500 meters up the road, I think I felt pretty bad as well. So got to that finish line. I think I nearly put another 50 seconds or a minute in him in that time. So he was dead at the end, but it was a fantastic race for me, and one that you just always remember.
I think Peter Sandvang on that, Cameron, he probably thought, because I was looking at the sports splits today, looking at the splits for that race, and he rode a 4:34, and he probably thought with a sub 3 hour marathon he should be okay, but but no.
No, yeah. And that, as I said, back in the day, that was a fantastic bike split, and we've just seen, Peter was one of the best cyclists in the world. So, if you put him on the technology that we have today, he would have ridden 4:15, on that course. So he and vice versa, same with me, and that. So it's technology has made vast improvements in the sport, which is awesome to see.
So you're an Ironman New Zealand champion, and I guess Kona's beckoning, and Europe. Was it about now that you established that sort of pattern of European champ, Kona, New Zealand? Was what point did that was your sort of pattern for many, many years?
Yeah. I always wanted to race the best. So to race the best, you went to Germany, and Roth was still Ironman Europe at that stage. I think the last year, 2002, was the last year when it changed to being a challenge. The first challenge race, and so I wanted to. I think for 7-8 years, I just made the trip up to Europe every summer, and would spend majority of probably 2 months at a time up there, and I wanted to race the best there, and Germany was the race to do it at, and then to have a little break, and then it would be guns full blazing for Kona in October.
Coming back to New Zealand, then 2002, you're defending champion. What sort of what changes there? I mean, I know the build up to that race was far from ideal. You were it was kind of cool because you were New Zealand Sportsman of the Year, but the awards on the Thursday night, not exactly ideal for a race on a Saturday morning in a completely different part of the country.
Yeah. No, it was a mad rush back to Taupo on the Friday, and then putting your bike in, and it was probably one of those ones that, man, it was very, very stressful, and I was glad to see that week over and done with, that's for sure. But managed to pull a second one off at Taupo, and I can't remember who was.
No, I remember that you're on that race, Cam, because again, I remember the race, and it's good to remind ourselves of this, but it was Jonas Colting got second.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And I was looking at the splits. He was 13 seconds ahead of you on the swim. You guys cycled. You were 9 seconds ahead on the cycle. Your transitions are identical. You guys must have been pretty close to each other. In the end, you got him by about 3.5 minutes at the finish line. Both. You were 2:49 on the run, and he was 2:52. So, geez, it was a heck of a battle that day by looks of it, looking back at that.
Yeah. I think, I mean, it was, the Danish and the Swedes were, at that stage getting better and better in the sport. There was more of them. I think they were starting to pick up triathlon. Then we had class balling as well, that would come down every summer as well. When, most of the racing, the guys. They were the French stars, the German stars, and all that. But you were starting to get that northern part of Europe that were really getting into the sport at that time, and they were getting. Most of them were all fantastic cyclists. So, he was a bit of a more all-rounder. So we had a close battle the whole day.
See, one of the things that stood out to me when I was sort of looking at things earlier today, just on that year, was your swim. You're only about 6 seconds behind Brent Foster out of the water with a sort of 48:20 or something along those lines. Had that been a change up for you at that point?
No, I mean, I back then, I had my short course speed, so I always swam well. I've totally lost my swimming now. It's just fallen to shit. But back in those days, you would always sort of swim 47, 48 minutes, and as I said, swimming hasn't changed much in the sport over those years. Wetsuits have, they've got to be 5 mils and maximum at any at the highest point. So there's really been, there's been the flexibility in the suits, but apart from that, flotation can't go any higher than that. So I sort of, through those early years, I did swim very, very well. So Melina would keep me in check in my biking every year, and then I started getting coached by Brendan Cameron, who was partner of Sarah Ulmer, was Olympic champion. So we started working with Power, and Power was just starting to come in on the bikes, and so but it was all wired cable still at that stage. Running down your bike, there was no wireless stuff at that stage, so it was all still pretty new. But Power was the new thing to train with.
Cable ties on the down tube and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
I think we were still all steel bikes or titanium, titanium for on the Lightspeed bikes through those early 2000s. So carbon sort of it was still a long way off. So and we definitely needed carbon on our roads, that's for sure.
Yeah, I remember that light speed. I remember you having that every year for quite a long time. It was back in the day, that was a heck of a bike, wasn't it?
Yeah. I managed to, I sold them all and sold one to a friend, Jared Caldwell, and man, I bought it back off him last year. I just, I've got two of my old bikes, one of my Avantis that I went on, and that Lightspeed. So they're in the garage, sitting there. So I sort of love my memorabilia, and that was one bike that was, pretty cool looking.
I was almost going to say that, we'll talk about it a bit later with the, but for locally where I live, there's it's actually moved not that long ago. There used to be a Bruce McLaren, the motorsport legend. McLaren racing used to be a little motorsport museum up the road from where I live, and it's now moved to one of the motor tracks somewhere. But you're almost the same. Like the memorabilia in there was incredible. And I mean, I've been lucky enough to visit at your house with your family, and it's quite incredible the memorabilia and everything you have in that house. It shows the full geekiness of your Ironman love affair. Really, it's fantastic. It's just for frothers like us, it's a mecca. It really is.
Yeah. We're saying it respectfully. Yeah.
I still, I have probably, I go through all my magazines because I've got, I don't know, 500-600 of them from the yesteryear, and I'll go through them and I'll send old articles that I'll photograph and send them off to Wellesley, and because he hasn't seen them for years, or they've just never kept those sort of magazines, or I'll send them off to Melina or whoever's Miles Stewart. I've got Aussie magazines, American magazines, French magazines, and sort of I do love looking back at that time, and because it was a great time in the sport where there was a heck of a lot of fantastic athletes, but guys that I just grew up with and started the sport with.
Pretty cool through that period. I look before we sort of move on to 2003, but we'd had Karen Balance had won in 2002, her first title, Joe Lawn the next year. You've still got Scott Balance competing. He'd won a few years earlier. Brian Rhodes is picking up a few titles offshore along the way. Did it feel like you were, the sport, Ironman was really riding a wave in the country at that time?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There was we were doing well in short course, with Hamish Carter winning in 2004 in the Olympics, and we were doing extremely well in long distance as well. So we were covering all bases, and it was just a great time in the sport. We'd gone from Rick Wells and Aaron Baker to now to Hamish Carter and Bevan Doherty and Chris Gemmell, and Andrea Hewitt would come a little bit later. Sarah Harrow and Kiwis were just thriving off each other. You had when athletes from your own country are succeeding overseas, or especially overseas, but at home as well, it makes you feel like you can achieve as well. So it pushes athletes, and sports die when athletes in their own country can't see athletes competing at the highest level in their sport. So I think that's one good thing that that the sport was doing well. That if you see athletes, Kiwis doing well, then you think, we can do it, and we've just seen that in so many sports that we do excel in.
2003, we mentioned Steve Larson before. I think his record was a 4:26, and thought that's never going to be broken until Dougal Allen came along a few years ago and subsequently been broken again. But what was it like that day when you've got a guy like that, a former pro cyclist, comes out and absolutely lights up the course? Do you what mental process are you going through? You've probably, you being you, would have researched it to the nth degree and looked at what he was sort of capable of marathon wise. So just tell us about your processes that day as you were looking for your three-peat.
Yeah, I'd seen him in Hawaii, and he'd done the same thing then, and I think it was 2001 that he raced there, and he'd run a high 3 hours 10, I think, in Hawaii, or something, 3 hours 15 maybe. So you knew if he did have a good run, and you can always have a better run when you're not running in the heat of Hawaii. So guys are always capable of running better in conditions like Taupo. So when he rides a 4:26, and you're although he was behind in the swim, but I can't remember what sort of lead he had, but it was quite a significant one. It was pretty massive. So, but I managed to just make massive inroads early on, and you sort of, I think you sort of start to know that, yep, I'm going to catch him at some point, and it might have been 28 Ks that I did catch him, and so it was a massive time gap, but to catch it that pretty much that quickly was pretty good. So it was another good day, but I think it was a pretty close year that year. There was a lot of guys that came down, and every year you would have 4 or 5 guys that you thought, shit, that they can win this race, and if you don't bring your A game with you, then you're not going to win. So every year you had to prepare. Every year I sort of thought that an Uber cyclist would come down, so you would always cycle your ass off in training and that, but you needed the run as well, and running was my strength, and I had some fantastic training partners over those years, and probably the best one was Mark Watson, who you guys both know, and we were fantastic buddies in that, but we would go out into the Waitaks and do the runs that Arthur Lydiard would have his boys doing every weekend, and running 35 Ks on that Sunday, and smashing ourselves, and just doing the hard yards, and it paid off every single year.
I remember Scott Balance. Sorry, Cameron. I was just going to say, I remember Scott Balance saying to me, if you want to look at a perfect running technique, have a look at this guy, Olivier Bernhard, who's out there today. This guy, if you can copy what this guy does, you'll do all right. And he finished second behind you that day. I mean, look, you won by 8 minutes, but was that sort of the bigger concern for you on race day, Olivier Bernhard, knowing how well he ran?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think he'd won Zofingen, and he was a fantastic duathlete, but he was also, a very, very good triathlete as well. And now he's a very wealthy man at running. So he's done incredibly well in after the sport of triathlon. But he was one of those guys that you definitely had to. I think we ran shoulder to shoulder for maybe to halfway as well, and then finally I was able to, I think, kick away from it. So
You were talking about Uncle Waddy just before, Mark Watson, and the guy's just the king, eh? We all think he's just a legend. But I remember talking to Mark back in those days. I said, so what's a typical week for you, Watto? He's like, Monday, long bike. Tuesday, long bike, long bike, long bike. Well, I thought, what do you do Sunday? Long run. So it would have been a heck of a training companion, man. Those days, when you look back at those dudes that you trained with, it must bring back some unbelievable memories of some of the training partners over the years.
Yeah. Oh, it's today is typical. I'm out by myself, and you're just reminiscing of when you did have all those guys that were in the sport, because they made it easier. That you when you had guys turning up that were willing to push themselves every single day along with you, then and you had good fun doing it. Then it made things simple and easy. And probably well, the last few years have been extremely tough, because all those guys have long gone, retired, got normal jobs, and I'm trying to still be out there trying to be a swim, bike, run triathlete and professional athlete. But there was I had some incredibly grateful for those training partners over the years, and a lot of times I would make sure I would get them up to Europe to push me along as well. It wasn't just in I didn't need them just in New Zealand. You needed them worldwide as well. So you would try and get them to follow you somewhere around the world as well.
Because what he around about that time was he running the high performance camp for Try NZ in
France.
In France.
Yeah, so we had a great base in Limoux, just out of Toulouse, and right by the Pyrenees, and so it was probably one of the best training grounds that I've ever been, and you could go on a different ride every single day, but then you could ride flat, you could ride undulations, or then you could ride up to Port de Payer, 2,000 metre climb, and ride on through Axler Thermes and some of the most stunning countryside in France. So it was very, very cool. It was probably one of my favourite places in the world to train. It was you always guaranteed nice hot summer, and we had great training partners up there as well.
I've got vague recollections of, I think, Mark telling the story. You're just going up one of the classic alpine routes, and one of you has ridden away from the other. I'm guessing it's you've ridden away from from Watto, and you shout to the valley, "You're right, Brown," and or you shout down to him, and you sort of hear it, "Yeah, living the dream," from going up the valley, which sounds very, very Mark Watsonish.
Oh yeah. No, he had all the great quotes. That's for sure. We still reminisce about all those quotes. So you bring those out occasionally, and you have a good chuckle.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, 2004. Gosh, this was the invasion of the Swedish invasion, and it was, gosh, it was all over the place with Bjorn Anderson, a 46-minute swim, Klas Bjorling 59 minutes, but then it gets really weird. It sort of goes up and down and all over the place. This was a pretty strange day.
Yeah, I think Bjorn absolutely smashed the bike, and I think that was the year that he pushed such a massive gear that he ended up, I think it was about 90 k's or something onto the bike. He just pretty much fell over. He'd cramped, and I think that was the last we saw of him. I think it was that year, or I think maybe. And
I think he actually did a 4:33.
It was the year after. It was the year after. He did the 4:33, and then he had a lead. We're trying to think about it today, Brian. We thought it was about 18 minutes that he had on you, 17, 18, 19.
Yep, that was the year. Yeah, the year later he did that.
It was hot as anything in Taupo that year.
Yeah. So he had the 18-minute lead, and then I ended up having to run him down, and then I think Klas was coming from behind. I think, did he run the fastest of the day, or?
Yeah, he ran a 2:41.59.
Yeah.
He was flying that day.
Yeah. So there was it first, second and third for those boys, was it, or?
Yeah, Klas got second and Bjorn got third. Yeah.
3:16. That would have been a painful finish to the day for him.
Yeah.
So you'd sort of won, I guess, in a range of different styles in that way. So you're probably feeling pretty good about, when you go to the Northern Hemisphere, when you go to Hawaii, Northern Hemisphere, when you go to these places, about, on the world stage, the next stage up, just sort of how it's going to go. You're kind of master of the universe, I guess, in terms of your ability at this point.
Yeah, I mean, New Zealand was, wasn't the world's best. There was good athletes, but you still, when you turned up to Germany or Hawaii, it was the best of the best. So you needed to be a little bit more of a step up. But I think I always trained best when I was at home. I had a few good years that I trained very, very well in Europe. But probably I always was at my best in New Zealand because I was sleeping in your own bed and training on your own training grounds. So and eating your own food. So, but every year when you went to Europe or to Hawaii, it was even just tougher expectations and tougher competition.
You mixed a fair bit of Gold Coast in there along the way too, didn't you?
Yeah. So I'd always sort of go to Gold Coast or Noosa later on, but I'd always, sort of get 3 or 4 guys, Gordon Walker, that would come over, and then Graham O'Grady, Scott Thorne, so we'd have a group. Stephen Sheldrake, Scott Molina came over one year, and you'd have a group of guys there. There was fantastic pools, great training out in the hinterland. And it wasn't extreme temperatures. It was sort of nice 25, 26 degrees, and sort of perfect. It was always easy for us because it was only an 8-hour flight to Hawaii and minimal time difference. Really, we're probably one of the best countries in the world with time difference. It was only 1 hour from New Zealand and 3 hours for Australians. So it was pretty easy to get up there, and you'd go a few weeks before every year to Hawaii. And but those, being on the Gold Coast, set myself up for great prep for Hawaii.
2005. So you're looking for 5 in a row, and just a sort of day in the early 20s, I think, temperature wise, and so on. You've got Gordo Byrne, who's sort of into Ultraman type things and training with Melina and Christchurch. Brian Rhodes, as always, there. And you sort of come out of the water with a good swim, 46.24. I think that was the year the swim course actually changed that year from what it had been previous, or had it changed the previous year, I think, hadn't it? And because of the lake being in flood, but they decided to keep it permanently in the lake rather than going into the harbour.
Yeah. So no, we were in fast swim conditions, that's for sure. And then, I think that was the first day I think I came off the bike in the lead, and I was sort of like, oh shit, what do I do? I've got the lead, the K into the run, and it was just a weird experience, and I think I ended up, breaking the record and winning by 20 minutes. So it was just a weird feeling for me to take the lead, into that run, and but it was a nice experience as well, and it was just running comfortably the whole day. So I don't know, I think I did 8:20, was it for the winning?
Yeah, you were, and it was interesting in that you were all up. You're 8:20, and it was a good day for a couple of the other athletes that day. Gordo Byrne, who you know well, was second, and Brian Rhodes came in third. Everyone ran well, but like you say, you just had one of those days that went exceptionally well, and a 4:40 on the bike for you that day was well ahead of the second and third place getters.
Yeah, no, everything just clicked, and just I think one of those days we, it was almost a perfect race, but it just felt comfortable the whole day. Not that you feel comfortable, but you got through it, and you're in good condition at the finish line, rather than previous years where you're just absolutely collapsing across that line.
You're a young dad, I guess, about this time, and you're going down to Taupo and doing your thing and so on. Did you have really well-established patterns and things? You're juggling the family life and so on. So, your race week, or the weeks prior to race week and so on. Just describe those for us, because you haven't got it on a string. That's making it sound easier than it is. But you've got 5 in a row at this point.
Yeah, I think, and as I said, you're training at home, you're in your own bed, you're eating your own food, and training through a Kiwi summer was just, I was just at ease, and life was good. You knew, but you also you're fighting to put food on the table for the family, and Jen was, she wasn't working, so it was up to me to with my sponsorship and prize money to pay the way, and so she was looking after Braden and Josh and full time, and so that gave me a real good ass kicking, to make sure that I was pushing myself to the maximum, and little things like that are massive, are massive for you, because they just push you that little bit harder. And through those early years with the boys, it was definitely just easy to train, because I wanted to do it for them.
So that's 2005. We're 5 deep in the titles, and we've covered an awful lot of ground so far. We'll take a short break and come back. Part 2 of our chat with Cameron Brown. It might come to you on the podcast. We might release it a week or two after part 1 of our podcast, but it's a long and colourful career, and there's so much more to look at. Cameron Brown, thank you ever so much for the time that you've given us to this point, and we look forward to hearing about the back half of your career to this point.